You want me to walk? Yeah. Okay. Ich bin natürlich nicht Stuart Granger, dass ich das jetzt 1000-mal mache, Mensch. Das ist eine Fußballakademie. Nee, Gott sei Dank.
Cut it, please. Okay, Hans. Can you tell us about the development of Project 1 into Project 7? In other words...
Well, project number 7 is a continuity of project number 1. Project number 1 means a development program that has been created by Dr. Havelange after he has been elected president of FIFA. And the project number 1 consisted of 4 divisions of development. That means we went with 4 instructors for the administration, for the technical instruction, coaching, for the refereeing, and for the sports medicine. This project number 1, as it is shortly called, has been taken to about 80 countries all over the world, particularly naturally to those continents where the football has not yet reached the world standard and where it is desirable to come to the world level. Logically, after the completion of this project number 1, which was basically designed for associations, national member associations of FIFA, there was a big demand for a continuation of this program. Continuation in the sense that it was considered to be on a higher level, coaching-wise, And on the other hand, we were getting together participants from various areas, no longer on national, but rather on regional levels. The regional levels, again, were divided into language points. We had academies, and the project number 7 consists of 16 academies.
Can we stop, please? I'm sorry. You were talking about regional levels being divided.
In the project number 7, we have designed 16 academies which were planned on regional level and then divided into language zones. Actually, we have 4 academies English speaking for Asia. We have 3 French speaking for Africa and 3 English speaking for Africa. We have 2 English speaking for the CONCACAF, which is the Central American and Northern American zone, and 1 Spanish speaking. We have already conducted another one in Oceania, English speaking. So what is left actually at this point is an academy to be conducted in Nigeria for Africa and another one to be conducted in Pakistan for Asia. And then we are having another project in China and one for the Gulf states.
Yesterday, I mean on Monday when we were talking first, Sunday when we were talking first, you were talking about the way in which Africans play football and the fact that they do not talk in teams. Can you gave us some good examples at that stage about how a European footballer will look around him and an African will get the ball and just go ahead. Can you explain how FIFA Academy Project 7 will help Africans?
Once we start talking about African football, I think it's not quite correct to generalize, because within Africa we have a certain styles or certain type of football, definitely. We do have in the northern a part of Africa which is north of the Sahara. We have a style or formation of football which comes very close to the general style which is played within the Mediterranean area. Then we have another style, southern of the Sahara, which I would consider rather to be the real African style of football, and for which many countries, again in West Africa, are representatives. Like, for instance, we have seen Zaire in the World Cup, which have been playing quite differently from Tunisia in 1978 and Morocco in 1970. Then we have other West African countries who play a similar style, which is basically a style that relies on individual play mixed with a good technique.
I'm sorry, can we stop there? We've run out of film.
What is actually generally understood as African football?
Sorry, he wants to start again. Are you ready? Start.
What is actually generally understood under African football is a type of football which is based more on technical requirements and abilities than on team play. And the Africans we know, they are good technicians, but they are definitely lacking this, what is significant for the game of football, team play. And with this team play, if I hope that our projects which we are presently carrying on, and the title of which, the project number 7, is From Minor Tactical Games to Football Systems and Formations, I think that with this academy we are giving them a substantial help to assist them in formation of teams, because they can only win constantly, they can only build up a base of football if this team play is introduced and is combined with their natural talents, mentality and technique and condition.
How has then, I mean, the Cameroons have now got a junior team going to the World Cup, the Junior World Cup in Australia. Has FIFA in fact been responsible for that up to a point or not?
When we are talking about Cameroon's participation in the World Cup being held for the Coca-Cola Cup in Australia, we must have a little look back, because the first tournament of this type was initiated again by one of the projects of Dr. Havelange, known as Project Number 2, in Tunisia. It was by then an invitation tournament, and then after Tunisia, we had a very successful tournament held in Japan. And in Japan, Africa was also represented, namely by Algeria and by Guinea. Now we are having the third already of these tournaments, and this time we have two different teams, namely Egypt and the Cameroons participating. It shows that probably there is already a development on the base, because in all the three tournaments we have different teams participating, unlike in the World Cup where we normally have the same 4 or 5 or 6 teams competing. Answering your question about whether FIFA has contributed, I do think in a certain sense yes. Because taking the example not only of Cameroon, but looking back upon the participants who have generally participated in our academies in Algeria, in Guinea, or from Algeria, from Guinea, now from the Cameroons, we always find that among those coaches participating in these academies, we do find the coaches responsible for the junior teams. So I think it has been a modest contribution of FIFA, and naturally not to forget also the African Football Confederation for the development of these youth teams. Naturally, such a development takes time, but and you cannot expect immediate progress within a period of, say, 3 or 4 years. Because in particular on the younger level, it takes the player a certain time to mature before he becomes a senior player, and then naturally contributes in the senior national team towards the development of football in the continent. But I think it is a right step into the right direction, moreover, because we have good statistics showing that, for instance, even if we look at Europe, we do find that great players like Bobby Charlton, like Uwe Seeler, like Beckenbauer, they have all gone through the former UEFA tournaments. And now we have made, after the tournament of Japan, we in actual fact find that we have about 40 players who have been in the whole playing for their youth teams and have in the meantime gone into the senior category, where they have now become international players. Let us just have one shining example, is Argentina, that won in Japan with Maradona and Calderon and others who are now regulars of their first national team. But I have only mentioned 2, but as I told you before, we have a number of about 40 players who have in the whole gone through this process of selection. You must not forget that the process of selection starts at a much earlier stage now. Particularly it starts already on provincial stages. In Cameroon, take it for an example. Then the young players are hunted, they are gradually developed to the national level. On the national level, they are screened again. As for instance, the Cameroon players have been spending a certain time in the USSR, they have been playing in Angola in a tournament, and they are now going to the Federal Republic of Germany for another preparation period. That means there is an opportunity for these young players to acquire already at a very early stage international experience, from which the country will only benefit at a later stage. So I think talking about youth football or junior football at this level, we should exercise a little patience, because this is also an educational process, and we do know that every educational process takes a certain time, and at least I would consider this the minimum period of 3 to 5 years.
Finally, a totally different subject. On Monday you were talking to the Academy about voodoo fetishes, and you gave an example of a man who got injured because he was wearing something around his neck and he headed the ball with it.
Well, I wouldn't like to go too much into this, because wherever you are playing on high-level performance, we also find this superstition. We also do find it in Europe, among European players. So naturally, we also find among the African players, we find among the Asian players, we find among the South American players, certain actions from which they feel that they will help them to win matches. The example you are citing was less an example of a juju. You find also South Americans playing with a cross or others playing with amulets. I rather feel that this endangers the health of the players, and for these reasons, because the laws exactly state that it is not allowed to wear anything which can endanger the player himself and the opponent. But another point I would like to say, naturally, we do find such actions of superstition sometimes on the field. In Africa, we cannot find it in Europe in such a way, because in Europe the playing fields are more controlled than they are in Africa. But I consider such an attitude a provocative action by which automatically the crowd is provoked, and which may then later result in uncontrolled movements and actions from the crowd. And I think for these purposes again, FIFA and the African Football Confederation is quite right to object and to forbid any type of which resembles or which comes very close to superstitions or amulets or fetishes. And I really feel that when we are carrying development projects from which we feel they are developed on a scientific level to Africa.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else?
Still running.
Right. Open the diary and just tell us a bit about the number of miles.
Well, you see, per year I have about 300 flights. And the distance I'm almost covering is about 600,000 miles every year, which naturally...
Kilometers.
1,000 kilometers every year, which has about which covers all the continents, as you see: Europe, South America, Central America, North America, Africa, Asia, and it goes on. And fortunately, from time to time, I'm still at home, but I don't think that I can avoid this year reaching the number.